Marcus deserves to manage the retirement fund, Amanda. He's better with money, my mother said, not even looking at me as she arranged flowers in her new crystal vase, the one I'd bought her last month. My father sat in his leather recliner, suddenly fascinated by the golf game on TV. I stood there in their newly renovated living room, my hands trembling slightly as I held the investment portfolio I carefully managed for the past 3 years. The same portfolio that contained my entire life savings of $275,000. Money I'd invested to secure my parents' retirement after my father's business went bankrupt. Better with money? I repeated, my voice steady despite the storm brewing inside me. Marcus hasn't held a job for more than 3 months in the past 5 years. My name is Amanda Chen, and at 32, I'd just been blindsided by the people I trusted most. As a financial advisor with one of Boston's top firms, I'd spent years building my career, living frugally in a small apartment while my younger brother Marcus bounced between get-rich-quick schemes and our parents' basement. He's found himself now, Mom insisted, finally turning to face me. He's been taking online investment courses, and he has some brilliant ideas about cryptocurrency. I almost laughed. Last month, Marcus had tried to convince them to invest in digital pet rocks. The month before that, it was a smoothie delivery service that never materialized. Where is Marcus now? I asked, already knowing the answer. Vegas, Dad mumbled, still not meeting my highs. At a cryptocurrency conference. He says it's a game changer. Of course he was in Vegas, probably using the new credit card our parents had given him, another expense that would ultimately come out of the retirement fund I'd established. We've already signed the papers, Mom announced, pulling an envelope from the drawer. Marcus will have full control of the investment accounts starting next week. He says the current strategy is too conservative. My stomach dropped as I looked at the documents. They had indeed signed everything over to Marcus, giving him complete control of not only their accounts but also my investment in their future. And what about my contribution? I asked quietly. The $275,000 I put in. Mom's face hardened, an expression I'd seen more frequently since Marcus moved back home 6 months ago. That was a gift to the family, Amanda. You said so yourself. And as family, we decided Marcus should manage it. Besides, Dad finally spoke up, muting the TV. You make good money. You don't need it like Marcus does. He has vision, sweetheart. He just needs a chance to prove himself. I thought about all the chances Marcus had already gotten. The college tuition they paid 3 times as he switched majors before dropping out. The failed startup they funded. The car they bought him after he crashed his previous one, which they'd also bought. Meanwhile, I'd worked through college, earned my MBA at night while working full-time, and built a career from scratch. But none of that seemed to matter. There's something else, Mom said, her voice taking on that familiar dismissive tone. We think it's best if you step back from family matters for a while. Marcus feels intimidated by your presence. He can't flourish with you looking over his shoulder. You're cutting me out? I asked, disbelief coloring my voice. Just until Marcus finds his footing, Dad added quickly. It's nothing personal, Princess. We just need to give your brother space to succeed. I looked around the room, at the new furniture I'd helped them choose, the renovations I'd funded, the family photos where Marcus always stood front and center while I smiled from the background. Something inside me shifted, like a lens finally coming into focus. I understand, I said, my voice calmer than I felt. You've made your decision. Don't be dramatic, Amanda, Mom sighed. We're not cutting you out. We're just prioritizing Marcus's growth right now. I nodded, gathering my papers. One question. Did Marcus happen to mention which cryptocurrency conference he's attending in Vegas? The big one, Dad stumbled. The important one. He said everyone who's anyone in crypto will be there. I smiled, pulling out my phone. That's interesting, I said, dialing a number. Because I just got back from Vegas yesterday. The only crypto conference this week was canceled 2 months ago. The color drained from my mother's face as I held up my phone, showing them the conference website's cancellation notice. But Marcus said. I'm sure he did. I interrupted, heading for the door. Good luck with your new financial manager. I hope those digital pet rocks work out for you. I walked out, closing the door on their stunned faces. They had no idea what I'd set in motion with that phone call. But they were about to find out. The next morning, while my parents were still processing yesterday's revelation about Marcus's fake conference, I was in my office making calls. Years of working in financial services had taught me one crucial lesson: always have a backup plan. My phone buzzed with desperate messages from my parents. "Amanda, please call us. Marcus isn't answering his phone. Sweetie, we may have been hasty yesterday. Princess, let's talk about this." I ignored them all, focusing instead on the email from my lawyer confirming what I'd suspected. The power of attorney documents Marcus had convinced them to sign had one fatal flaw. They'd been notarized by someone whose license had expired 3 months ago. "Ms. Wilson, are you sure you want to proceed with this?" my lawyer asked during our morning call. "Once we file these papers, your brother's financial activities will be under intense scrutiny." "Do it," I replied, thinking about the alert I'd received last night from the monitoring system I'd secretly placed on the retirement account. Marcus had already attempted to transfer $50,000 to a casino in Vegas. Fortunately, I'd anticipated something like this. The day my parents had started talking about Marcus's financial genius, I'd added some protective measures to the account. Any transfer over $10,000 required additional verification. Verification that would trigger an automatic fraud investigation. By noon, my phone was ringing nonstop. This time it was Marcus. "What did you do?" he hissed when I finally answered. "The casino's threatening to call the police." "Really? Which casino?" "The one hosting the non-existent crypto conference." There was a long pause. "Look, sis, you don't understand. I found this amazing investment opportunity." "Save it," I cut him off. "The only reason the police haven't been called yet is because I intercepted the fraud alert. You have exactly 1 hour to return to Mom and Dad's house. If you're not there, I'm letting the investigation proceed." "You wouldn't?" he challenged, but I could hear the uncertainty in his voice. "Try me. 1 hour, Marcus." I hung up and called my parents. "Family meeting in 1 hour," I said before they could speak. "I suggest you have all the financial documents ready." When I arrived at their house exactly an hour later, Marcus's car was in the driveway, still covered in desert dust from Vegas. Inside, I found exactly what I expected: Marcus trying to charm our parents with elaborate explanations while they looked on worriedly. "Amanda," Mom started, "your brother was just explaining." I held up my hand, placing my laptop on the coffee table. "Let me explain instead." I pulled up several documents on the screen. "First, here's proof that the crypto conference was canceled months ago. Second, here's the casino receipt showing Marcus tried to transfer $50,000 from your retirement fund last night." "It was a temporary transfer," Marcus protested. "I found this incredible opportunity." "Third," I continued as if he hadn't spoken, "here's the report showing that the notary who signed your power of attorney documents had an expired license, making them legally void." My father's face had gone pale. "But Marcus said his lawyer friend arranged everything." "That lawyer friend doesn't exist, Dad, just like the conference didn't exist, and just like every other scheme Marcus has sold you over the years." My mother sat down heavily, her hands shaking. But what about our retirement fund?" "Safe," I assured her. "I put protections in place months ago when I suspected Marcus might try something like this. Not a single dollar has been lost." "You had no right." Marcus exploded, jumping to his feet. "That money was supposed to be under my control." Mom and Dad agreed. "Sit down," I said quietly, my voice cutting through his tantrum. "You're already in enough trouble. The casino is willing to drop the fraud investigation, but only if the situation is resolved today." My parents looked between us, decades of enabling Marcus warring with the cold reality of what he tried to do. How do we resolve it?" my father finally asked. I pulled out 3 documents from my briefcase. "First, you sign these papers revoking Marcus's access to any family accounts. Second, he moves out of your house today. Third, he enrolls in the financial literacy program I've arranged at my firm, or I let the fraud investigation proceed." "You can't be serious," Marcus scoffed, but his voice had lost its confidence. "Try me," I repeated my words from earlier. "You have 1 hour to decide." Again, my mother started to protest, but my father placed a hand on her arm. For the first time in years, he looked at Marcus with clear eyes. "Sign the papers, son," he said quietly. "Your sister is giving you a chance you don't deserve." As Marcus deflated, finally facing consequences for his actions, I felt no satisfaction. This wasn't about revenge or proving myself right. It was about protecting my family, even from themselves. Amanda, my mother said softly as Marcus sloped upstairs to pack his things. We were wrong. About everything. I nodded, keeping my expression neutral. Yes, you were. But that's not the end of the story. My phone buzzed with another notification. Everything was ready for the next phase of my plan. One that would either rebuild our family or change it forever. 3 months after the confrontation in my parents' living room, I sat in my office reviewing the progress reports. Marcus, surprisingly, had stuck with the financial literacy program. Maybe it was the threat of legal action, or maybe he finally realized he'd run out of chances, but he was actually putting in the effort. My phone lit up with a text from Mom. Coming to dinner tonight? These weekly family dinners had become our new normal, though they looked very different now. Gone were the days of praising Marcus's latest schemes or dismissing my achievements. Instead, we have real conversations, sometimes uncomfortable ones, about the past and the future. The first dinner after Marcus moved out had been tense. My parents, stripped of their ability to enable him, didn't quite know how to act, but I had come prepared. I have something to show you, I had said that night, pulling out a folder. Inside was a detailed plan for rebuilding not just their retirement fund, but our family relationships. This is extensive, Dad had commented, looking through the papers. I learned from the best, I replied, watching his eyes fill with tears as he recognized his own business planning format. The one he used before everything fell apart. Now, 3 months later, I replied to Mom's text with a simple yes and smiled, thinking about how much had changed. Marcus was living in a small apartment near my office, working part-time while attending the financial program. He wasn't thriving exactly, but he was surviving, honestly, for the first time in his adult life. The retirement fund had recovered from his attempted theft, and I'd implemented even stronger protections. But more importantly, I'd helped my parents understand money management themselves, rather than relying on others to handle it for them. Your brother asked about the investment club, Mom texted again. Is it okay if he joins? The investment club, that was my masterstroke. 2 months ago, I'd started a small investment group, teaching basic financial literacy to family members and close friends. My parents attended every session, slowly rebuilding their confidence along with their savings. If he's completed level 2 of his program, yes, I replied. Marcus needed to earn his way back, not just be handed opportunities. That evening, as I drove to my parents' house, I thought about the letter in my bag, the one that could change everything again. I'd received it that morning from my firm's board of directors. Walking into the familiar house, I found the atmosphere different from our tense meeting 3 months ago. Mom was actually cooking instead of pretending to arrange flowers, and Dad was setting the table rather than hiding behind the TV. Marcus arrived last, carrying a folder of his own. I passed level 2, he announced without preamble, his voice carrying a hint of genuine pride rather than his usual bluster. Congratulations, I said sincerely. The investment club meets Thursdays at 6. During dinner, the conversation flowed naturally. Mom talked about the small investment she'd made following the club's guidelines. Dad discussed the business magazine he'd started reading regularly. Marcus, somewhat awkwardly, shared what he'd learned about compound interest. Finally, I pulled out the letter. The firm is opening a new division, I announced. Financial education for families affected by bankruptcy and fraud. They want me to head it. That's wonderful, Mom exclaimed, then caught herself, looking uncertain. Isn't it? It is, I assured her, and I want to start with our story. The silence around the table was heavy with understanding. Our family's journey, the bankruptcy, the enabling, the near disaster with Marcus, and the recovery, could help others. All of us, I continued, looking at Marcus. If you're willing to talk about what went wrong and how you're fixing it, you could help other people avoid the same mistakes. Marcus stared at his plate for a long moment. You trust me with that. You've earned the chance, I said quietly. 3 months of honest work and study. That matters. Dad cleared his throat. I should talk about my part too. How I failed as a business owner and a father. How I tried to fix my mistakes by enabling worse ones. Mom reached for his hand. We both did. But we're learning too, aren't we? I looked around the table, at my mother, finally seeing her children clearly, at my father, accepting responsibility instead of hiding from it. At Marcus, slowly growing into the person he could have been all along. That's what family really means, I said. Not blindly supporting each other's mistakes, but helping each other grow and improve. Even when it hurts, Marcus added unexpectedly, even when it means hearing that you're wrong. Especially then, I agreed. As we finished dinner, making plans for the new project, I realized that my revenge hadn't been revenge at all. It had been resurrection of our family's integrity, our relationships, and our future. Sometimes the best way to prove your worth isn't to tear others down, but to help them build themselves back up, even if they have to hit bottom first.